Ba-do-do-do-ba-do-do. Hello, everybody. All right, we are going to go ahead and let people go ahead and get logged on. And as we do, Jessica and I are going to chat just a few minutes, just to kind of warm everybody up here. And you guys can put your answers. I'm pointing over into the chat box here, into the chat box. So, by the way, this is Jessica. She's our marketing editor and coordinator here. She's also my co-host on all of these webinars. But Jess, and I want everybody to answer this question. What is the last movie that you saw? So everybody put your answers in the chat. What was your last movie that you saw? Jess, I know you're not a huge movie person, but what did you see?
Oh, I know. I'm so much more into shows lately for the last few years. I want the character development. I think that's what it is. I want time for that to unfold. So the last series I watched was Daisy Jones and the Six. Has anyone seen that? Because it came out last year, but I hadn't heard of it. I think I heard about it while reading about the Golden Globes because, an
Oh,
actor was up for nomination. And I was like, what is this? So if anyone hasn't heard of it, hasn't seen it, it takes place in, I think it starts in the mid 60s, goes into the 70s, and it's loosely based on the story of Fleetwood Mac. Loosely based, and it's actually based on a novel. So it's about the rise and the fall of a rock band.
oh.
And
Well,
I won't
so
say too much. Yeah,
Allison
yeah, yeah.
Gayer here said she knows what you're talking about. It's based off the
Really?
book, which you just talked about. And then Mark Sayer said that the last movie he saw was Taken. So the last
Oh,
movie that I saw, and you can put your answers in there. So Allison, you're not off the hook. You need to put what movie you saw in there.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
The last movie I saw was a new Miyazaki film called The Boy and the Heron. And I can honestly say I see a lot of movies. I had no idea what was going on for 2 hours and 4 minutes. In fact, I went with my 20-year-old son, and he just kept looking at me going, Dad, do you understand what's going on? And we didn't. From a context standpoint, from an imagery standpoint, it just none of it made sense. And so we came home and watched YouTube videos trying to explain to us what the movie was about. And still to
Oh
this
my
day, I have
gosh.
absolutely no idea what that movie was about. So with that, everybody, thank you for participating in our open line of questioning there. And we're going to get into atomic content. So just very quickly, the foundation of this entire webinar today is to show you how you can take either future content or present content and turn it into a lot more content to get back your time. So Jess, you want to go ahead and take it away?
Yeah, sure. Great to see you, everybody. Thank you for being here. Just a little housekeeping, Matt. Maybe you can keep an eye on the chat. For some reason, I need to change this, but I only have one monitor, so it's a little hard to be like doing the slides in the chat. So if I'm
I
not
got
in
the
the
chat,
chat,
sister. Yep, I got it.
that's why. Okay, I'm there in spirit. Okay, so welcome to the webinar. We are going to talk about a way that you can share your expertise more often, more easily, without having to create new content every single time. Thank goodness. And here's what's coming up. We are going to talk about, well, what is content multiplication? Why is it beneficial? How do you choose what you're going to multiply? And we're going to walk you through our 5-step atomic content method. And then we'll do a quick Q&A. We can also answer questions throughout as well. Okay, so let's dig in. What is content multiplication? This is when you take a long form piece of content of high quality, maybe a blog, a webinar, a video series, or a long video, and you transform it into smaller pieces of content, also known as atomic content. Now, Matt, I love zooming in on high quality because I think that's really important. We're talking about high quality, something that you and your team have put a significant amount of energy and effort into. You've done maybe your customer research, your topical research. You've interviewed subject matter experts. If, especially if you're on the marketing team, if you're the advisor, you've just like emptied your brain, onto the page. You've decided what medium you're going to use. You've put a lot of effort into this, and you've ultimately created something you're proud of, and hopefully even more motivated to share it. So that's the high quality component of this. Now the time saving component, because this is about reclaiming your time. We're not talking about no longer creating content. We're talking about putting or I guess this maybe, I've never said it this way, but that whole quality kind of quality over quantity. You're putting a lot of work into creating really, really good stuff and then getting the very most out of it. Let's go on. Okay, here's an example. So you could take a podcast and atomize it into so many things. You don't have to do all of these things, but it could be social media posts, blogs, emails. I mean, we're talking kind of about long form to short form, but these last two items are really cool. You could go long form to long form because, like we said, you're going to keep creating high quality content. So you could take something like a podcast episode, and that could be inspiration for your next webinar, or maybe a white paper. So just don't want to discount that. But there's some ideas right off the bat. And let's get into the perks. Okay, when you're taking this content atomization approach, you are giving more exposure to your expertise, and you're giving more exposure to your high quality long form content. So for your expertise, when you're taking that content and chopping it up into smaller pieces, you can share it across social media, you can share it across email, and you're giving people more opportunities to get to know you because it's your personality in there and learn from you. And chances are that's why people are following advisors, right, Matt? To learn from them, to get to know them. So what a great thing for referrals, because we know, people aren't just calling advisors, they're Googling them. What a great thing for them to go onto your social media and get to know you. And then if they want to learn more, they're going to go over to your podcast, they're going to go over to your blog. What a great thing for potential hires, who are checking you out to get to know you and your firm. So increasing exposure to your expertise. And then the other item I said was increasing exposure to your long form content. I like to think of the atomized content as arrows. The more you atomize, the more arrows that you're creating, that you're pointing over to your long form content. And just imagine if someone watches a video clip of you and they learn something right away, they get a tip. They're like, wow, the payoff was totally there. I think they're way more likely to go take that next step and go to the long form content and learn even more and hear your call to action. And worst case scenario, they don't check out the long form. Maybe not now, maybe not this time, but they're still learning from you. And that is extremely valuable. Okay, so that is one major benefit. And Matt, just jump in if you have anything to add here. Okay. The next one we have is audience focused. Matt, actually, why don't you take this one and I'll jump in.
Well, so I want to just kind of bridge that gap here, right? So the being able to go ahead and have this really speak to your ideal clients and prospects and the media they prefer while they're there, right? So when you're atomizing your content, not only are you getting more exposure for your thought leadership and your expertise, but if you do it correctly, which we're actually going to show you how to do it in the second part of this webinar, you can see how you can take that one thing. And again, Jess, I love that you said this, and I'm going to probably say this 3 or 4 times during the presentation today. It does need to be something that you're proud of, right? Because we want you to be super excited about everything that is out there and that you're doing, because then you're going to talk more about it and you're going to be more likely to interact with it. But having it make sure that it's audience focused is you have to put your content in the medium they prefer while they're there, and atomization really, really, really helps with that. Because if you have a couple of different target markets specifically, or even multi-generational inside one niche, you need to be more making your stuff more accessible.
Yes, thank you so much, Matt. Now, some people might worry, well, I did the podcast. If I'm sharing too much through email, I'm sharing too much through, or being repetitive through social media, aren't people going to get tired of that? And or haven't they already listened to the podcast? Why repeat it? And the thing is, maybe they listened to the podcast, maybe they haven't. And even if they listen, they didn't catch everything. we as humans, we don't retain, we don't catch everything. We don't retain everything. And it's so easy, I think, to fall into the curse of expertise where we forget that people don't know what we know. So there's a great, things that seem obvious to us, they're not obvious to other people. And there's a great benefit to being repetitive.
Yep.
People learn through that repetition. And if you're in the business of trying to change a mindset, maybe you're trying to shift how people view retirement. Usually that shift, it takes a few iterations, right? So
Oh, come on, Jessica. They
yeah,
should understand what I'm saying immediately and
just
immediately take my
immediately.
advice because I'm the smartest one out there. I
Yeah.
love that you're saying that. And everybody, things have fundamentally changed. If somebody doesn't want to see or read your content, they're going to swipe right by it. It's not like they got another email from you that they have to go in and read and delete. Social media specifically is a very different platform.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay. Third major benefit here, Matt. Why don't you speak to the existing content?
Yeah, so I'm the king of existing content and you are the queen of new content. So this makes a lot of sense. So what we really want to do, when Kirk and I really built this whole system here, our whole goal was to take all of the thought leadership that him and I had created over the many, many years that we've been in this industry and repurpose it to other sorts of media's forms. Because when you're working really hard, like Kirk and I have, I published my first article in Horse's Mouth magazine in 2007, right? And so, and I'm still utilizing some of that older content. So if you have a seminar, if you have a webinar, if you have a white paper, if you have a client presentation, whatever, you can take that old content and apply the steps, the 5 steps we're going to talk about in order for you to go ahead and refresh that content and not have to consistently always have to create something brand new. But when you are going to create something brand new, just take it away.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that you don't have any long form content to multiply yet. Maybe you haven't started creating content, or you've started with short form and you're kind of not going backwards, but just that's your starting point, which is totally cool as well. Um, well, the good thing about this approach, whatever you're planning, say it's a podcast, you're going to do webinars, video series, you can already have a plan to get the very most out of that content and get the most exposure possible. Okay, so how do you choose what you're going to multiply? Take it away, Matt.
Yeah, so we just to reiterate this, because again, repetition is the key to remembering. This is the stuff that you have done and are planning on doing, right? So this again is podcasts, longer form videos. And you know what? I'm going to take a step back because I want to address again very quickly the reason why it is long form content.
Mm,
Number one, because you want to have an iterative approach to them wanting to consume deeper and deeper more of your knowledge. But the other thing is, if you've got a 30-minute podcast, you can pull 5 to 7 things out of that podcast or white paper, right? Or a webinar in order to go ahead and do our content multiplication, our content animation. That's really how all of this works. And that's what you want to do with any of your old content. Dust off that old PowerPoint that you used to give and it works so well you stopped using it in your discovery meeting. That can become an amazing piece of content.
yeah, oh my gosh. I love everything, but that last point, there's some things maybe as an advisor you've created and it just didn't get the traction for whatever reason. Like it was well thought out, well done, written from the customers or the client's perspective. Maybe like a white paper. So why not pull out a bulleted list or a paragraph and turn it into an email, turn it into a social media post, and really show people how approachable, conversational and
Yeah.
applicable that white paper is to them, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's time to create something new. Matt, did you want to take this one?
Well, I just want to talk about just something very quickly, and then I'm going to turn it over to you.
Mhm.
Please love the media that you're going to use, right? So if you love to write. If you love to talk podcasts, if you love to do video, do a video. If you love to do speeches and presentations, do a speech and a presentation. We really want you to lean into what you love because then it's going to make the atomic content process way easier.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. People sense that your audience on the other end, they hear that enthusiasm, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was talking to an advisor a little while ago in office hours. He's a advanced member of our PodRocket Influence Academy, so he gets access to the office hours with our team. And he was talking about a podcast that he's working on, launching right now. And thing is, he was sending emails out to his clients regularly, like an email newsletter. And the feedback he was getting was that the information was really valuable, but his clientele just, they didn't have time to read the copy. So he thought, okay, let me do a podcast then, and they can listen to it on their commute. So he's planning it for, the average commute time in that area. And he's still going to deliver it through email because people are opening the emails.
Mhm.
That's working, but it's just changing up the medium. And he was telling me that on his way to work, he has, 8 episodes planned out and he's rehearsing them. I'm like, so, Matt, like, what a great example of listening to what your audience wants and then combining that with what's something that you would enjoy creating, because the enthusiasm is palpable and I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, I love this.
Woohoo!
Okay, getting into the 5-step atomic content method. All right, let's do this. Okay, so starting off, this is the example we're going to be looking at. This is a client of ProudMouth, of our managed influence acceleration services. This is Marcia Miller. Her podcast, Making Hay, is all about helping veterinarians navigate their personal finances. So a wonderful niche. We'll be looking at her content from a content atomization perspective. Okay, step number 1, find the gold. Now, the gold is where you start. This is all about zooming in on a moment from your long form content. Okay, now, it's like, well, how do you find the gold? How do you know? Okay, and a great way to do that, Matt, I was actually just thinking about this today, is if you use a formula like this, what we use with the clients, perfect content formula, it takes the objectivity out of the process a little bit, right? Because some of us were so hard on ourselves, especially if you're new at creating content or doing a certain type, like new at podcasting. You might record it and then go, was that any good? And it was. But sometimes it's harder for us to recognize that for ourselves. Well, whether that's an issue or not, take a formula, like use this one and go through it and say, okay, what was educational? Where did I share a tip, a metaphor? What was entertaining? So bring in, did I share a pop culture reference? We have
Mhm.
one client, Matt, who he was going through the lyrics of Can't Buy Me Love by the Beatles, and he was talking about the relationship between money, love, happiness. I'm like,
Huh.
entertainment. People love that. There's gold right there. Did you tell a story, especially a personal experience where maybe you've had, similar challenges as your audience, and then a call to action where you're giving people the next steps to take. And these might have some overlap too, of course, but I think it makes it easier to identify that gold. Now, Matt, I love when you talk about, I don't want to talk about it because you're going to talk about it, but feeling it.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I'm sorry. I was just reflecting on how you just positioned that, and I haven't actually heard you say that in that way before. So that's something that we're going to use for our own damn atomic content. So usually, especially when you're being interviewed or you're interviewing somebody else, you're going to feel something like it's going to either hit you in your heart, or it's going to hit you in your head, or it's going to hit you in your gut. Like, wow, I've never said that way before, or wow, my guest said something super, super smart. Any of those wow moments, that's another great indicator that there's some gold there. And there's a couple of different ways to manage this on the back end. And Jessica's going to actually show you how we do it here for our clients. But one of the other things that you can do is you can actually start a timer, right? So I have a timer. I time all of our shows and all of the podcasts that we do. And I do that because if there is that golden moment, I look at the time and I actually just write the timestamp on my little yellow pad of paper that I have over here. And then that way, when our team, or in your situation, when you're going to go ahead and really pull out that atomic content, it's even easier to find.
Oh, I love that. Such a great idea. I think, yeah, okay. We are now going to jump into this even a little bit more for the content atomization with our client example. What you're looking at here is a a podcast summary. So this is episode 1 for Marcia Miller. Episode 1 for our clients, it's, I think, almost always about, from the advisor's perspective, who am I? Why do I do what I do? Why did I get into this? Who do I serve? Why? And if you were online scrolling down on this, you would actually see a play button right here to episode number 1. So we're looking at episode number 1 for this method. And now here is the transcript. This is where you can see the dialogue between Marcia and the ProudMouth co-host, Bill Tucker. And they're having a conversation. We see that. And we have some gold highlighted here. Marcia's talking about, she's really in the midst of a story, talking about being a woman in the business, back when it wasn't cool. And what she told herself was don't quit. And now that is, a philosophy, the same encouragement that she extends to her clients. Really, really cool. So she's talking about her own experience and here's how I approach my clients. So you're learning about her and you're as a listener, I think you're starting to imagine yourself as a client, which is super cool. Okay, so there's the gold. Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
The timestamps are there. I just wanted to show that.
You okay? Take it. Okay. Take a drink. Okay. We want to talk, Matt touched on this earlier a bit when you were writing down the timestamps, that you can do planned and spontaneous gold. This is an and, as Matt would say, not an or. So I'll speak to the planned. I highly recommend when you're planning out your content, whatever it is, video, podcast, blog, have some things in your outline that for sure you want to say, because you're like, oh, I already see this as a video clip and I want to make sure I'm saying that on my social media. So it might be a certain phrase that resonates with your audience. It might be even, some voice of customer that you get by doing some customer research and realizing, wow, this is how people talk about retirement. Okay, I want to make sure I'm speaking that same language. Plan that goal ahead of time, plan those tips, plan those stories, or else you'll look back and be like, oh, I should have said it. And that'll still happen, right? But it'll happen a lot less.
Well, the other piece of that too is, when you are trying to stay on brand, right? That's another great opportunity for you to have planned talking points, throughout your podcast or your long form content to reinforce part of your brand message. And when it comes to the spontaneous aspect of gold, right? Jessica said this earlier on, and so again, it bears repeating. You need to be your Eunice, and the more Eunice that you have that comes out, I'm not talking about the woman's name Eunice, I'm talking Eunice, making it so that you bring your personality out into your content. That's where you're going to find a lot of your atomic content. And Marcia Miller is a perfect example of that, right? She's telling a personal story about, a quote that really helped her stay the course. Now, was that spontaneous? It could have been somewhat planned. The other thing is it really has to do with preparation and mindset. When you know that you're going to be interviewed and you're sitting there saying, okay, I need to be the best me that I can be. I'm going to share as much as I possibly can. That's really when a lot of the spontaneous, amazing content really does come out.
That's such a great mantra for preparation. What was that? I'm going to share what I can and be the best me I can be.
Yeah, be the best
I
me
love
you can
that.
be.
I love that. Okay. All right. Step number 2. We are going to take our gold and we're going to create more of it. Okay. I'm just so curious. There are absolutely no wrong answers. Looking at this quote here, what might you create with that? Put your answers in the chat. We'll keep going. I'm just curious. Social media, emails, what's your vision? Okay. Here are some ideas we thought of. We could really see that quote being in a vibrant, beautiful graphic on social media that catches people's attention. We could see it as something even more ephemeral, like an Instagram story, or featuring it in your email. Maybe you write an email that's all about encouraging people, don't give up. Keep going, keep showing up, and you have that quote graphic maybe again in that email. You could also do another email where you're sharing this quote as an example of what people are going to hear in the podcast, and you're driving people over to that podcast page to listen. And you can incorporate it into a white paper, a blog, a webinar. Why not? Bring some personality, bring some soul into those pieces. Okay. Now, here is what our team created with that gold. What you're looking at actually is it's so behind the scenes. This is the social media copy that we provide our clients for them to review, send to compliance. And we have the copy here for LinkedIn, Instagram, and X. You could see the quote at the bottom, just slightly revised for readability. That's going to go along with these posts. We could talk about these posts all day and I won't, but what I love about them is there's an immediate payoff. You can get something out of every post, even if you don't go to the episode, but I think it makes, tuning in even more enticing. Okay, and then, so you saw the copy. Now here's the graphic that goes with it. This is just a screenshot from Canva, which let us know if you love Canva. And in Canva, you might already know you could have a template, like you could see this is page 10. You could have a quote template where you have your brand colors and your logos for that consistency. And I also want to mention that Canva has a cool feature where you can edit the graphic mat, and it's called remove background. So you could put your photo on here and remove the background. And I mentioned that because it's a great way to get your face in front of people, even if it doesn't feel natural, just in general, but especially if you're not doing video yet, people can still be, seeing your smile. Humans are wired to pay attention, so they'll be to humans, so they'll be drawn to that. It's great to share that, especially from company accounts, to really show people like there's a person who cares behind this firm. Okay, let's keep going. Step number 3, share the gold. So we're going to see how this comes together. We have the copy, we have the quote graphic here, and this is an example on LinkedIn. So final product, putting it out into the world. And, oh yeah, I knew there was something else I wanted to say about share the gold. Key point, share it. Don't, even if you don't think it's perfect, put it out there.
Yeah.
Just perfection doesn't exist. I know there's some, I know for me, I'm a bit of an overthinker to be like, you know what? I'm doing it the best I can. I'm sharing value with my audience. Put it out there.
There's another thing on there too that I want to highlight, which is this whole idea of hashtags. And there's a lot of argumentation. In fact, Jessica, I know some of our marketing friends have had heated discussions, about the use of hashtags. And regardless of how you feel about them personally, it is actually the way that the internet indexes things. And so, especially on social media, which includes podcasting platforms, video platforms, and then, of course, the big three, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And so you do need to pay attention to that. That's really important because, if somebody goes ahead and types in hashtag don't quit, they might have never heard who Marcia Miller was and loves this post, which is a great way for introducing, and especially Instagram is a great example, because if you go into the search function of Instagram, it defaults to hashtags, which is another really important thing. I'm sorry, I just want to add that 2 cents.
Oh no, that's great. It just gives people another way to follow your content. So that is great. All right. Interact with the gold. Matt, I know you have an opinion here.
I have so many opinions about this. So what most of you are doing is you're speaking out into the void, and the algorithm doesn't like it unless there's actual interaction. And we've actually been able to find out that it has to be within 90 minutes of the post in order for you to, what we refer to as, please the algorithm. And a lot of you are saying, oh my God, well, Matt, I can't say anything at all. No, that's actually not true from a compliance standpoint. If you see how Marcia responded to this, this is an amazing way to go ahead and interact. You don't have to. In fact, Stoy Hall, who, if you aren't following Stoy, please do. One of the super cool things that what he does is he says you can say a lot without saying much. And I love that quote so much, really, because Marcia just interacted with this and got Stephanie to interact with it again, which really, really does please the algorithm. So you have to interact. You have to block out time for that.
Yeah, I love how Marcia said, "We got this." You know, it's this sense of we are in this together. So, such a great response too. That looks simple, but there's so much, meaning and impact
Yeah.
there. Really, really like that.
Yeah.
And we like to think about social media as the start of a conversation. You're not just like
Mhm.
posting and disappearing, but you're here to build relationships with people. And I think there are opportunities too to co-create with your audience. Like maybe in the comments Marcia could ask, what's your favorite mantra, or she could put that in the PS line of her post, sort of
Yeah.
a almost not a double call to action, but sort of, and then start a conversation in the comments, and then do a follow-up post where she shares and tags everyone with their mantra. That'd be super, super cool. Okay. So that's interacting. Now, the last step is repeating your content. Okay. Here are some opportunities why Marcia might share that quote graphic again, or share that whole episode again. Think of national days for her. World Veterinary Day. It's on April 27th. She could do something special for that day. She could do something special for the whole month. If she wants to, she could say this should be a whole month, and replay her greatest hits. And I think with Matt Women's History Month coming up in March, stories like what Marcia's telling would
Hmm.
be perfect to showcase. And for sure, you could do a special piece for, something new for Women's History Month, for National Day, but then bring back, some of these greatest hits and replay them to extend that campaign, and help people see that content from a different lens and angle. Okay.
Well,
Um, yeah,
I think it's super important for people to realize that one of the things about the atomic content method is that level of repetition. And with this rinse, lather, and repeat component, at the fifth step here, when you have created something, especially when you go back and you look at the analytics of the performance of a post or a podcast or a video, and if it did really, really do well, guess what? Repost the damn thing, right? And you can even say, hey, this was my number one post from last month. What do you think? Repost it. Now you're reinforcing the message that seemed to be very, very popular. That also gives you an opportunity to maybe take that micro piece of content, that little atomized piece of content, and that then can maybe turn into another long form piece of content. So that's why we say rinse, lather, and repeat. It's really this entire holistic process that we want you to work on as a content creator.
yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. Do more of what people are indicating that they want. That you can see through analytics. I relatedly, Matt, I've also been thinking about this. I think it can be daunting to put out content when you believe you only have one shot. I have one chance to talk
Yeah.
about this quote, to talk about, not quitting. That's it.
Yep.
Um, sometimes I almost think of it as a well, it's a little bit more than a dress rehearsal. But sometimes I think of it as a dress rehearsal. I'd be like, I've done my best,
Yep.
right? Putting it out there, and I'm going to do it again. Or you could also look at content that maybe you put a lot of effort into, but it didn't do well for some reason. Maybe there's an opportunity there to go back and tweak it
Yeah.
and try it again,
Or
right?
or it could have been something happened in the world, something happened in your clients' lives. I mean, again, social media and content marketing can be fickle, and you just need to have the opportunity to have the flexibility that we're trying to show you on how to use today.
So true, so true. Okay, let me cover these ideas really quick. If we were going to repeat that quote by Marcia Miller, you might think about curated content. So if you're going to do an episode of, my top moments, my top interviews, something like that, it really helps to have some curated quotes that you dug up in the past as gold to revisit again on that episode. And then could also repeat this content if Marcia has, an increase in people following her, an increase in her audience, because what a great opportunity to introduce yourself again. And then same with any say email funnels. Before people go to a discovery call, maybe they're going to watch that episode and get to know Marcia first. Okay. Now, I want to share our, I just lost the word, tech stack. Here's what our team uses to atomize content. And um, none of these, these companies aren't sponsoring the webinar. We just want to share because we find them helpful. Many of these have a free option or a trial, at least, where you can test them out. So for planning content like outlines, MindMeister, recording podcasts, Zoom, editing podcast, Descript, syndicating, we use Blueberry, video editing, so taking a long video and then chopping it into, all those short form clips, Headliner, scheduling your posts, Sendable. You could also look at analytics, and then creating graphics like, the one you saw earlier. We use Canva. Okay, Matt, do we have time for the bonus idea?
I think we do. I want to just go back one slide real quick because
Yeah,
I want to talk to
yeah.
them a little bit about this tech stack. So the reason why we really wanted to show all of you this is because if you bring these things into your firm, whether it's you or somebody on your team who's assisting you, this is how you can really scale and get more done by using some really great pieces of technology. And the reason why I wanted you to go back is because
Hmm.
we failed miserably on making mistakes with tech real early. And so we've made the mistakes for you. These are the ones you want to use because they're great and they work really, really, really well. So, all right. So yeah, let's go to the bonus idea and
So
then we will
true.
go ahead and wrap this puppy up for everybody. Now, there's really two different ways that you can go ahead and interact with what we're doing here. And it is actually very, very simple. If you want to actually learn how to do this yourself, we built an entire academy, which actually the link was posted earlier in the chat. Please go to PowderRocketAcademy.com, or you can scan this QR code. Listen, for a very, very small investment, not only you as probably the advisor, but your team gets access to the PodRocket Influence Academy. What this does is this gives all of the best thinking, all of the training that we train our people who do this for our managed influence clients and deliver that to you. Plus, you get 8 hours of office hours every single solitary month where you can hang out with Jessica, you can hang out with me, you can hang out with our other influence accelerators here at ProudMouth to really help you be more and more successful. Now, some of you don't want to do this yourself. You actually want to outsource this to people who do this for a living. And I want everybody to know that we've done almost 8,000 episodes for advisors, and then turned that 8,000 episodes into about 100,000 social media posts. So this is literally what we do every day, all day for our clients. And so we can do this for you. And if you have the time and the budget that you really want to go ahead and not spend so much time and outsource it to experts, we would be more than happy to go ahead and talk to you about it. And if you go ahead and scan this QR code here, you are more than welcome to get time on my calendar. I'm going to give you 30 minutes just because a lot of times it's quite consultative. I'm not really selling you anything. I really just want to see if it's going to be the right fit for you, because there are a lot of solutions out there and we are not a perfect fit for everybody, but we would love to have that opportunity. So if you guys have any other questions, we can go ahead and open this up for Q&A, but I'm Jessica going to go ahead and walk you back through because Lisa Reynolds brought up a way that she uses her gold for extra atomic content. She says, I use my content gold for my radio spots. So she makes 30-second ads based off of her brilliance. And that's absolutely fantastic. So we
That,
actually don't even have that on the slide. Lisa,
oh
that
my
is
gosh.
a great, great, great idea on how you can go ahead and do that. And then,
Amazing.
of course, I know people probably figured this out by now, but you are, because you signed up for the webinar, you are going to get a replay of this. You're more than welcome to watch this as many times as you need. Please write down all of the information that you need. We're giving this to you for free for a reason, because you need to stop being the best kept secret in your area. And the only way to do that is to get your voice out in the marketplace and get people consuming your expertise. That's what you can do with this atomic content method. All right, Jess, you got anything to say before we wrap this up?
Should I share my little bonus idea?
Yes, bonus
I'm
idea.
saying
Go.
little. I'm not trying to minimize it. I think it's cool, or else I wouldn't be sharing it. So this is an idea for creating some atomized content without doing video or graphics, because some people just, they're not ready to do it yet, and it'd be a shame for that to hold you back. don't let that stop you from getting your expertise out there. So say you have long form content. I'm just going to use a podcast for an example, but it could be a blog, it could be anything. Go through that podcast transcript and find all of the top takeaways. You can reword them, you can use them as quotes, and then in your email or your social media post, introduce the topic, the problem that you're solving for people, and then here are, the top takeaways from this new episode. And then at the end, give a link to the episode. And what that does, it gives people a payoff right away in the post. They're already learning something. And I find these posts are really well received. People will comment saying, "Ooh, I can't wait to listen," because you're giving them that preview of what they're going to hear. And just as a marketing person, I find this idea effective and pretty easy to execute. Just going through the transcript, finding those top moments, maybe cleaning up the text a little bit, and then that becomes a significant portion of your post. Anything to add, Matt?
No, I don't have anything to add. All right, everybody, we want to thank you for your time. If you ever have any questions or whatever, you can follow Jessica or myself on social media. We're very, very active all over the place. And also make sure that you click on the links in there. If you want to set some time on my calendar, there is a link there, which, by the way, Mark already scheduled some time on my calendar. So, Mark, I'm looking forward to talking to you in the beginning of February. So thank you for that. If anybody else has any questions, please go ahead and reach out. But for Jessica and all of us here at ProudMouth, we'll see you on the other side of the mic very soon.
Bye, everybody.